Hi, 8th graders. Today the objective is to learn about Louisiana's 5 natural regions. And our objective today is by the end of this video, you will be able to identify and understand the differences between Louisiana's natural regions. Keep in mind there are 5 of them. You have guided notes today to help you. Make sure that you are writing down some characteristics of each region and resources that each region produces. Okay, let's talk about the first region, the Mississippi floodplain region. This is the area on the map. As you can see, it follows the entire length of the Mississippi River. A floodplain is what? That's right, a floodplain is a low-lying area by a river that floods every once in a while, and it is very fertile for farming. That's the main characteristic of the north part of this region, fertile for farming, because there's a lot of something called alluvial soil due to flooding, and it means that there's a lot of sediment from the bottom of the river which gets deposited into the soil, and it makes it very rich. In this region there are a lot of natural levees, so the sediment deposits on the banks of the Mississippi, and over time it builds up and forms kind of this little crust on the outside of the river, which prevents water from flooding. But every once in a while, the Mississippi rises and it floods over the natural levees. These are some major resources. They produce cotton, oats, and soybeans. And here is a picture of a cotton field in the Mississippi floodplain region. As you can see, it's very, very fertile and good for growing crops. Now, in the south of this region, if you go down more towards New Orleans, it gets a little bit swampier, and there's a lot of swamps of cypress trees. So really wet soil and wet tree growing areas. This part down here is called the Delta, and it's an estuary, which means it has brackish water in which fresh water from the river meets the Gulf of Mexico, which is salt water, and it forms this sort of brackish, salty water, salty fresh water. This is a cypress grove. Oops, let's go back there. This is a cypress grove. As you can see, it's super wet. Okay, region number 2, the terraces region. The resources they produce, they're cattle, dairy, and hay. And the terraces region looks a lot like the Midwest of America, like Iowa and Kansas. It's called the terraces region because this area used to be the old direction of the Mississippi River, and before it changed directions in the Ice Age, it left a bunch of flat terraces or flat shelves of soil. And so some parts of the terraces region look like little shelves. This is a picture of it. I think it's really pretty. And there's some hay. Okay, third region, marsh region. The marsh region, like the south part of the Mississippi floodplain region, is brackish as well. In some places, especially the closer to the coast you are, the more likely it is to have brackish water, which is salty water that's been mixed with fresh water. Then up top here is a freshwater marsh, so it hasn't hit the ocean yet, and it's still freshwater. Louisiana is the #1 producer of salt in the US, and there's a lot of salt marshes down here that have natural salt deposits. And these are their other resources. It's resource rich: sulfur, petroleum or oil, salt, natural gas. Here's a picture of the marsh. The main difference between a marsh and a swamp, here I'll go back so you can see. What do you notice between this? This is the cypress swamp, and this is the marsh. Yeah, that's right. The marsh doesn't have trees. The marsh is very low-lying. All right, our fourth region is called the Red River Valley region. It follows the Red River up from Texas, and it's low-lying compared to the rest of this area in the north, which we saw yesterday has a very high elevation. This part of town is extremely fertile. This part of the state is extremely fertile, and it produces a lot of crops. There's red soil here, which is why it got the name Red River. Here's a picture of it. As you can see, the river is low, and then in the distance there are some mountains here, some hills. And then finally, we are in the hills region. It is the highest elevation in the state, and it has the lowest amount of precipitation or rain. Its resources are lumber and dairy. So lumber is wood, trees. And here is a picture of it. All right, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the different regions of Louisiana.